Welcome to the Beyond Thundera podcast. I am Sean Buddha McEwen, author of the Hall of Omens and Hall of Omens Thunderverse. And as always, I'm joined by ThunderCats writer, showrunner, and again, all around great guy, Peter Lawrence. Thank you once again for joining us here, man. This has been so much fun so far.
Well, I'll tell you, to be introduced as all-around great guy every single time is very good for ego. Of
Right.
course, one to ask a few questions.
Well, yeah, that might be where we lose some people right off the bat. They're like, wait, I've known him for years. That can't be the Peter Lawrence I know. one of these, one of these, I was going to call you Sir Peter Lawrence. This is again, I know the UK and all that. We haven't got there yet, so I'll throw that one at you one of these days. But
Well, of course, I mean, the other funny, there are a couple of other Peter Lawrence writers, and occasionally I'll get a question. But I think there's one who's like some kind of specialist surgeon,
oh,
and I get some bizarre question about how to operate. Or anyway, that's not it. That's why sometimes I use my first name as well.
yeah,
But I have, well, let me just back up. One of the things that Buddha and I want to do is we really want to encourage you out
yeah,
there to regard this more as a conversation than a couple of guys throwing stuff at you.
right,
Which means, ask questions. And by the way, if if there's something that you disagree with, I mean, however violently or you don't like, I mean, tell us
yeah,
something we've said or the show or whatever. If you hated Thundercats,
yeah,
come on the show and tell us why. I mean,
yeah,
it would
one
be
hundred
interesting.
percent. Yeah,
Anyway,
but
part of the sort of these shorter episodes that we're doing is to answer questions and to throw questions around. And I have, as I've said before, this whole Thundercat family, for want of a better phrase, is new to me, and it's really a shock. I mean, a wonderful shock, but it's we're talking about 40 years later,
mhm,
and to see this level of enthusiasm is astonishing. It's energizing. It's also humbling. But one of the things that I don't understand, or yeah, I don't understand, and I don't mean that critically at all, is the whole collector passion. And I was watching Egmont the other day and JP
yep,
unboxing new new figures.
yep, yep.
And the level of enthusiasm was just astonishing to me. And I was trying to think why and how. And I sort of thought back to my own. Well, if I had a boatload of money, I'd probably collect a couple of cars or
Right,
motorcycles.
yeah,
And
right,
that threw me back to the time when I did have a bit of money. I did collect a couple of cars and motorcycles. And but it wasn't the same because when I got rid of them, I remember watching the trailer leave the house with two or three cars, I don't remember, which which I loved and were quite
yeah,
rare cars.
right,
And then a couple of days later, I sold one of the motorcycles, and I didn't feel any regret. I didn't feel that I'd lost anything.
mhm,
I didn't make any money on them, so
yeah,
wasn't to do with, oh well, I made a ton of money, so it doesn't matter. I just didn't care. And the only other thing I've ever tried to collect, I once collected shotguns, and I
oh,
had a beautiful old English hammer gun, which when I left for America, I should have taken it with me. Actually, I really wasn't thinking. I left it with somebody else,
mhm.
and to make a long story short, the guy died and became part of his estate, and it went to his kids.
Oh man,
I thought, I should, yeah, but in the end, I just didn't care.
mhm,
And that I think is a big difference
yeah,
between a real collector and somebody like me. So that's what I want to ask you about, Bud. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
what's the deal?
Well, obviously, I can only talk about my collecting and how I am with it. Which again, you at least, like you said, you've collected, so you do understand kind of that that joy that is within that in collecting, like, so you kind of understand it in that regard. But like, so for me, I'm not to bore everybody. I know I have actually gotten this question kind of asked a lot. So I started collecting Thundercats back in the like late '90s. And I mean, I wasn't like a serious collector. It was just kind of getting some things randomly here and there. And then as years went on, I started getting more and more into it, obviously, and getting more serious about it. And that was probably, I probably became like a serious collector. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. But like a serious collector, maybe it was around 2011, 12, 10, somewhere in that area. And by a serious collector, there's like a casual collecting where you just kind of like what I was doing. Like I'd see a cool Thundercat shirt because back in the late '90s, at least in my area, they were right outside Philadelphia, and I'm sure in a lot of spots in the US, that's when they kind of started coming out again, where like Warner Brothers was putting out just t-shirts. It would have, like the graphic tee that had sometimes a logo or Mumra on it and that type of stuff. And then you had that quick little like nostalgia feel. Here I am 16 getting to wear like, oh man, I used to love Thundercats. I had the wristbands on and stuff like that. That kind of really was like, all right, that's cool. And I still had some of the toys from when I was a kid out, not many, but I have like one or two of them out. And, back then that was kind of got the idea of like, oh man, it'd be cool to really like, I wonder what's out there. So that's why, again, like eBay was around and eBay was a totally different landscape than it was now or is now. Like you could get stuff for pennies. Be like, there's not just like dollars and stuff like that. And again, I never had a lot of money, still don't have a lot of money. But it was kind of cool being able to find, oh, cool, like a Thundercats mini or a figure or just something for $1 or 50 cents or something like that. And it was just like, all right, cool. Yeah, I want to get some of the stuff. And funny enough, as Captain Cracker, he's actually the guy that started my collecting from the get go. I wanted to get everything that was Captain Cracker. And then at the time, I didn't realize there wasn't much Captain Cracker stuff. So once I got like the three things, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do now? Then I went to coloring books because I got very into the merchandise. Because when you were online looking at, there's this place, it was like a Thundercats website. It was a forum with a lot of collectors. And I say a lot, it was not that many because not many people were really using the internet for that yet. But like everybody, they always show the figures and stuff like that. And that's awesome. Obviously, I got into the figures. I love the figures. But I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to, that's what kind of got me into doing all of the merchandise and all of the other wild stuff like that. And then I just went down the rabbit hole with that. And that was the other good thing about merchandise at the time, late '90s, early 2000s. No one cared about that, so I was getting it for $1, $2, and shit
Right,
like that.
right.
It was great. But yeah, like once you kind of started collecting, for me, that's really what sparked it all up. And the best way to describe it, I mean, it's kind of like, it really is kind of, it sounds so corny, but it's kind of like being a treasure hunter in a much smaller regard. Like that's why even like shows like that, was it Curse of Oak Island here in the US? I don't know if you've ever heard of it in Colombia, but you're just watching people on a treasure hunt. And this is like, what your average person can do treasure hunting wise. And it's like, you've got that idea like, oh, I want to find whatever it is. I really need to find a Jaga. So then you start looking for a Jaga. Like, oh, well, it's X amount of dollars. And then you want to get that deal. So it's like you're getting a one up. You're getting, oh, cool. It's worth whatever. Again, the prices are always changing. But so it's like a little bit of an adrenaline rush too. You get that. So there's a lot of little things that go into the collecting for me. And then when I got it too, like after you get it, one of the parts I loved and still do is the display aspect, kind of the showing off of what you are able to get. So there's lots of little, was I guess like dopamine rushes. It just makes you feel good when you're, and also you get like an accomplishment type thing when you set out to get whatever that one thing was or to find that one thing. Then you not only did you find it, you got it for a good price, you're happy about it, and then you're holding it in your hand. And it might be something you never thought you were ever going to own or ever see in your life. Like, I know it's not really a great explanation, probably not. It's very long winded, but there's just so many little things that go into collecting that can make you, it can be addicting. I know that's why some people become hoarders, where it gets kind of scary. So you kind of have to walk that fine line of hoarding or a serious collector that doesn't lose their house because they're collecting.
So, but I mean, is it is it a kind of solitary thing? I mean, I tell you why I asked that question.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of things you said made me think about my own experience. And I mean, take cars for example.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm not sure about this, but I think part of the attraction, apart from the love of the machinery or whether you work on it or,
Mhm.
all that stuff, is that, on a Sunday or a Saturday, I mean, you'll drive to such and such a place and meet a couple of other people who've got
Yeah.
similar cars or the same car. And that is kind of social. But then I put against that my whole attitude to motorcycles,
Mhm.
which is that, wait a minute. I didn't want to go and meet anybody else on a bloody motorcycle. The reason I had a motorcycle is I wanted to get out there alone
Right,
on
right,
my, very special bike.
right,
Um,
right.
so this got a kind of a complete contradiction. And then I'm sorry, I'm throwing various different things at you,
No,
but
no, no, no.
I mean, listening to Egmont, I think in one of the interviews that I did with him, and then with JP, very definitely, both of them said in different ways, they came, well, let's start with JP. JP said, I didn't really have the money to collect anything.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
as a kid. And then when I did, when I got a decent job and I had the money, I went straight back to those things that I wanted to get when I was a kid, which I
exactly.
was, really interesting. And
Yeah,
again, in context of cars, which is so very different. I know the cars that I love and wanted to collect were the cars that I couldn't have when I was a kid. So I didn't
yeah,
have enough
right,
money or I wasn't old enough.
right.
And then Edmond told a quite moving story about having had a reasonably large collection which you had to get rid of,
Oh, okay, right, right.
and there's kind of loss involved in
Mhm.
that. So anyway, there's a bunch of things to throw at you.
Yeah, no, no. Again, I'll try to make sure I remember exactly what it was, but I'll start at the end and and move forward. So
Right.
if I forgot any, remind me.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so well, and so again, in my personal thing. So when I was a kid, I had a lot of them. When you're a kid, I may have had 5 or 6 figures, but in my mind, I had them all. But I know I had a good amount of stuff because the Thundercat toys for me were the one toy I actually got. My brother, he got like everything else, but like Thundercats, that was my thing. So then, as I grew up or whatever, I won't go into the family situation. We can get on that in another episode. But at one point, the Thundercats all disappeared. They were all gone. Like all the toys in the house disappeared because there was like a toy room type thing. That's where everything was. The only things that ended up staying were the ones that were kind of in my room. That I actually still have those to today. It's a Panthro, who was my favorite figure, Monkeyan, who was like my favorite of the mutants, and then Captain Cracker, and then a Tusker Warrior mini. And it's still to this day, I make fun of them both, especially now after the book, after this podcast and everything. But so my dad says that my mom threw them out, and my mom says that my dad threw them out. I've got no idea who threw them out. Apparently, no one in the house threw them out, but every single toy in the house got thrown out by the invisible person. Um,
Mumra did
yes,
it.
Mumra said, "Hey, get these things out of here." Even though Mumra's tomb was my cat's lair because I love that Mumra's tomb playset, but so for me there was that lost type thing where these things I absolutely loved. I used to take them everywhere with me. I loved the cartoon. Then all of a sudden they were gone. So there was a little bit of that in the beginning. Once I started kind of getting into the figures again and being like, I don't have a lot of memories with, again, there's the health things as far as memory wise, except for a couple that stand out. But getting them and whatnot, it feels so good. You're again going back to that time when you're a kid. Oh, I had this. You remember that, and it does make you happy. And I know I think we've talked about this. I think even JP talked about this before with you. It takes you back to that time when you were a kid, even if it's only for that couple of seconds, getting to kind of be there again. And you know, the 80s toy generation too, why this stuff is all taken off. I know, even the 70s, 60s, 50s, all that. If you were a kid then, these toys weren't really there like that. So this is kind of a whole new thing now. And this is how people are really connecting with it because, we get, and even lifestyles changed then. In the 80s, I know a lot more parents, like, probably towards the end of the 80s, you know, they started working more. So you were home alone a lot. That more so happened in the 90s, where that didn't happen nearly as much in the 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s, and so on. You'd have, if you had a two-parent household, usually one of them was home. So you would have toys, but you're at least there with somebody. And a lot of kids now, if grew up in the 80s, probably grew up by yourself unless you have brothers and sisters. Like you were left home alone, whatever it was, just because well, number one, you were allowed to do that then. But you just sit there and play with these figures. So that's why, they mean so much to you, because I think you and I have talked about this. It's, you'd watch the cartoon for 22 minutes, 25 minutes, but then you had 23 hours of playing with these things. So these things almost became, it's weird to say became your friends, but they
Yeah.
became closer to you than actual friends. So kind of getting to replace those things and kind of bring you back to that. And then also it takes you back to you didn't have to worry about bills. You didn't have to worry about going to work, whatever it was. And like I have a collection room. Like I'm actually in that now, as you can see. It's much smaller than it used to be, because I too, I was a serious collector for a very long time. I got to the point where, I moved some stuff out. I sold some stuff to other serious collectors because I was working on the first book, and then the new book is kind of weighing those options. Like, well, I can do this, but I got to pay for this. And how
Right.
did I do that? Go ahead and kind of doing that.
Right.
But couldn't tell you how many times I just walk in the room, whatever, how stressful the day was, how week, whatever life was going on. And it was very good way you just kind of felt good. I don't know, it's probably, again, when you'd be out on your motorcycle, when you're driving by yourself, you kind of tune everything else out around you, the people that are pissing you off or whatever it is. And you're driving down that highway or that back road, just kind of on the thing that you love in your own mind, and just kind of relax.
Right.
And
Now, I've got to say, and I mean, this is not a plug for Buddha at all,
yeah,
um, but those books are absolutely a work of love. I mean,
thank you.
you know, God willing, you'll make a couple of bucks out of them. But as far as I can see, unless you're the best con man in the world, it's not. Oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money
Yeah,
out of writing books about. I mean,
yeah.
they really are labors of love, and sure, and they're astonishing. I mean, I had one over here in Colombia, and I showed it to a friend of mine who's something of a art enthusiast, and he has a very fancy bookstore and this, and he was absolutely gobsmacked. I mean, could not believe it. And then coincidentally, the Medellin Book Fair came at roughly the same time as I showed him that book, and it caused him to go and look at all the manga, anime,
Mhm.
animation related stands in the book fair, which he would not normally do, despite
Yeah.
the fact that he had a stand there. And he's, you know, astonished by your work on that. I mean, really impressed.
Oh,
And the only thing that pissed me off about it was that I said, well, let's get the books over here and we'll sell them. And I said, what price can you sell them at? And he came up with a price about a quarter of the production cost. So,
yeah, like
you know,
which now, since we are talking about that, we are, we were trying to do something like that. Was it last year, the year before that, whatever it was? We are looking to do some things there
yeah,
in the future. Again, if we can make it happen, we're looking for it, because again, I know, but honestly, and again, thank you for, I mean, everything you said about the book, and then also your friend. Is like, it may sound corny, but like these really were like a labor of love. Like
yeah, no, no.
honestly,
And I think I know we're coming to probably the end of one of these short ones, but one of the things that we want to do is to really expand and, for want of a better word, respect. I can't think of another word. The whole Spanish speaking
yes, yeah,
audience for the show, and we want to get this book into those hands.
yeah, one
However,
hundred percent.
whether it's anyway, let's just leave it at this. We're working on
Yeah,
it
yeah,
because
we are working on it.
the book needs, that it needs to be out there. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we are working on it. We're trying, and that kind of brings me. It was another part of the previous question. Again, I know we're kind of running a little long here. But as far as the community aspect of it, and like the solo versus community, for the longest time, even with the message boards and whatnot, I thought there was a community, but I didn't really personally. I didn't get into the community aspect that well. Like any community, sometimes there's some bad apples, we'll say, and sometimes you don't get along with certain people. And then when you have a community of people, there's drama. I'm not a
Right.
drama guy. So therefore, I stayed away from a lot of the community aspect. And it wasn't until probably the late, I don't know, 2015 or 16. This is when I know I think I've talked about it before about going on social media and looking at it a little bit differently and finding the positive people and stuff like that. And then going to the local toy shows and seeing
Right.
then, which has been amazing. I've been able to do that, with these books, go all across the country to these toy shows and really be embracing the community, a community that I was not the Thundercats community, but just like the community of collectors, the collector community was something I really did not embrace. I was kind of like a private collector. I'd share my stuff on the message boards, but that was it. I didn't tell anybody else. I didn't talk to anybody. And then it was probably around 2015, I started to go to these shows regularly and slowly more I made friends and whatnot because there's a lot more positivity in it. And it became more of a community driven aspect where it's no longer just a solo endeavor. Like so
Right.
the collecting can be very solo driven because you're at home if you're doing it online. But now the branching out a little bit, I've been meeting other collectors and they'll keep their eye out for something like, oh hey man, like I even get messages still to this day from friends that I've met all through social media who are on the very good side of the collecting that, hey, this isn't really my thing, but I saw it, thought it might be something you'd like and ways to expand collecting that way. And even like the toy resellers, they're all collectors too. And you meet them at shows, you become friendly with them, and then they know when they're out looking, oh, if they come across some Thundercats, hey, let me call Buddha, let me see if he's got this. So there are two different avenues for collecting, definitely. And I ignored the community aspect for a very long time because of the drama in the one aspect that I saw in it. But once you're able to find the positive community, it really does become a really cool experience that honestly I was surprised about. I didn't know, and honestly, I know I've talked about this before. It's an honor being able to go out again, right? Even again, going out there with the book and being able to connect with so many people, just talking Thundercats and hearing their stories because it all stems from them wanting to talk about the book and the toys, and it's so cool. Again, now I have friends all over the world now, all because of Thundercats and the community driven aspect of collecting, which is
Right.
amazing to me. But and I think there was another. I forget there was another part of your question. I do apologize. I don't remember what it was.
That's all right. But I've forgotten it as well. So
Okay, but
no, I mean, just a general. It's just a very, very interesting area, and obviously there are people who collect all kinds of different things, and
yeah,
I just never had come across that kind of your enthusiasm. I mean, somebody who would put, and again, I'm not boosting my friend. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. Somebody who would put that much effort and that much investment, not just of time, but of their own money
yeah,
into a project that you know ostensibly has no massive financial upside at all. So
right.
I mean, it's really it's stunning. I mean, and you know, interesting area, and I thanks for the answers, and I'm sure we'll revisit it for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I mean, I'll tell you what we should do is we should revisit it with some other collectors. We should
yeah,
talk to Egmont and everybody. I mean, all the people that we talk to regularly who collect, we
yeah,
should get them on, just like we're going to get the crew on,
yeah,
kind of ensemble. Let's get a bunch of collectors on and have them talk about it. And I'll tell you one advantage that'll have for us: we won't have to say anything.
yeah,
Just
right. Yeah. We'll just sit in the background and like that'll probably obviously let's see. I'll be talking during that one, whether they want me to or not, because when it comes to collecting, I'm not going to shut up, as we've seen today. Like, but yeah, no, I love that idea. We'll have that.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah. We
I'll
do.
reach out to a couple guys. We'll set it up, and literally we'll just get to talk Thundercats collecting. There'll be vintage,
Cool.
modern, everything, and again, you'll get probably. well, I hope an interesting insight on the collecting mind and world and see what it's like.
Right.
But all right, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. This was again, I love talking about this. I again the fact that you collect cars. Oh wait, hold on. Actually, I'm sorry. We are going to wrap it up, but there we do have a question that I want to ask. We were asked online by this became through Facebook in one of the Thundercats groups. It was from Paul Willow Williamson. Paul wanted to know: are you guys also collectors? If so, what's the most expensive thing you've bought, still own from any of the three cartoons? Meaning Thundercats, Silverhawks, and Tiger Sharks.
Well, I mean, the answer for me is no. I, I never even occurred to me to yeah, to buy any of the toys or to be involved in any way in that collection. And so, no, I don't have any of them. I mean, I do know a couple of writers who still have a couple of box toys. But that's a different mindset. So no, I don't, unfortunately. And in fact, anything else I've collected, I don't have. So
Well, if I know you mentioned cars, like what else? I'll answer. Obviously, crap I've collected, but like, what else did you collect over the years? Like, not even just Thundercats related, just whatever it was.
well, no, no, like I said, I love shotguns.
Okay.
So I mean, particularly, I don't know how to, conventional shotguns. I'm talking about pump action, street cleaners, or anything like that. I mean, the real classic English and actually European. So I had a Stephen Grant Atkin Damascus barrel hammer gun, most beautiful piece of work. And it was one of a pair, and I tried to track down the other one. I could never find it.
Oh,
And,
really?
and that's the one that disappeared into
Oh man.
somebody else's will. I had a Dawn, which is a very interesting shotgun. It doesn't break. It doesn't break, and you
Oh
put
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
shells in here. It has a kind of sliding breech.
Oh, all right.
Very interesting gun and very light. That's one of the advantages.
Oh,
So anyway, that's guns. So don't have any of them.
mhm.
And I think probably the car that I loved most. I had a 1955 Packard Club 400 Club Coupe, and it was like some kind of disgusting bottle green with a white hard top and a black trim. It only had 30,000 miles on it.
Oh wow.
And that was a fantastic car. It was huge,
Right.
huge. You couldn't. I mean, I remember I was driving down some road in upstate New York, thinking, "Wait a minute! If another car the same size came the other way, would the, how did they do that?" Of course, you know there weren't that many cars
Yeah.
around.
I was just gonna say, yeah, there weren't that many cars.
Yeah. Anyway, so and then the other car that I had that I absolutely well, no, there's enough of this. You don't need to hear about my cars gone.
Oh no, no. I mean, honestly, feel free because this is about collecting. They were, just outside. Because I had a '71 Mustang Mach One, and then I had a '73 Mustang Coupe. I love those muscle cars, like the Mach One. That one I love. Oh man, it was beautiful. But yeah, so
No,
I
I
get
mean,
the collecting.
I think probably the best car that I ever had was a Mazda RX-7, the new one, the last one. It
Okay.
was like, and it had an incredible sound system. So it's like being on a roller skate at 120 miles an hour with the best sound you ever heard in your life. You know,
Right.
I used to drive up from LA to the Bay Area, all the back roads, never mind the freeways,
Yeah.
because you could do whatever you wanted. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah.
But that was a great car. I got rid of it because it had 100,000 miles, and it was before those cars were worth anything, which they are now.
Yeah. Right. Right.
100,000 miles, the Synchro was going, and I
Mm.
thought, nah, not going to put any money in this. Anyway,
Right.
sorry, that's that. Nothing to
Yeah.
do with that, guys. I
Oh no, yeah,
apologize.
but that's like we said, we go beyond Thundercats all the time. And this is all about our collecting But yeah, so to talk about the 71 Mach 1, obviously not Thundercats related, but my friends would make fun of me in a nice way and say that was my Thunder Tank because honestly, again, 71 Mach 1 is a muscle car, loud, and
Yeah.
when you were in it, the whole thing was vibrating and it was powerful. I
Right.
never could bring myself to call it the Thunder Tank. I was like, I don't want to do that. But at one point, I did think about getting a custom license plate that said "Ho" on it because I thought that would have been just great.
Yeah. Right.
But but yeah, so as far as my collecting, yes, obviously I'm a collector. I've collected for a very long time. Over geez, at this point, over 25 years. The most expensive thing I ever collected, I finally got it, was the Tonosaurus figure. I don't know, Peter, if you've ever seen that or not, but they made the figure of the Tonosaurus, and that's always been like one of those expensive, really expensive figures. I forget exactly what I paid for it, and at the time it was a lot. I know the price has gone up since then. I eventually sold it, but that's like one of those corner piece items for a collection where it's just like as like a next level item, and that's why I had to get it. And I couldn't own it long because I didn't have the money for it, but it was just like I have to get it. I need to see the full thing, like all together like that, like the full line together. Um, but yeah, I have since sold that. Currently, again, my collecting has kind of slowed down a bit in the recent years with doing the book, but I have been collecting the new Thundercats comics. I've been because they're cheap and easy to grab, so I've been collecting those, going along with it, and that's right now. But don't get me wrong, I still keep my eye out on things, and if I find something interesting, I definitely can and will grab it if the spirit moves me. but
But don't you have, or didn't you have, was it a tricycle?
Yes, yes, it was. Yeah, I still have that one. I had that was that on the episode of Pawn Stars with me. It was the Thundercats Thunder Tank pedal power tricycle or pedal power bike. I think it was the exact name, which is basically a big wheel, but big wheel is a brand, so they weren't allowed to call it that. So it's like the LJN's version of a big wheel, which is actually over there in the corner over there. Now I still have that one. That one is one of those for me. That was one of the items. It was like a white whale. I never thought I was going to own it. Jokingly, this was back in my early 20s, would tell a girl, my girlfriend at the time, who wasn't really a fan of my collecting, I was like, yo, listen, if you get me that, not only will I stop collecting after that, I will marry you the day, whatever you want to get married. And she, I don't, she never got it for me, but I'm not going to say she thought about it, but she thought about it. Like, but yeah, so I still do have that. And from the original series, one of the things I do currently have are prototype minifigures that were the actual photography sample used in all of the ads and everything that went out all over the world. So that's kind of one of my really that one's a near and dear thing to me because I love the mini line and the fact that I still have that and even found them because no one knew that they even existed anymore. And I ended up getting very lucky finding them and coming across them and now having them and
Right.
kind of again preserving the history of those items and just the minis themselves was always it's amazing. And that was also go back to my personal collecting, preserving the history of these toys and Thundercats was something that was really important to me as I got deeper into my collecting. And for me, obviously, the show wasn't around. Collecting the toys was one way I could go about that. I could
Yeah.
preserve a little piece of their branched out history, and that's what I could do for the show, and that was really important. So yeah, getting those minis was really cool. Being able to like, holy crap, this is
Right.
like not only history, like it's toy history as well. So those are really cool.
Uh, uh,
But yeah, we will go ahead and wrap this up. I've been talking about toys for like I don't even know how long, more than anyone is interested. But this was great. Anybody, if you're a collector, let us know in the comments what's your dream item? What's the item that you want to have in your collection that you've been looking for, you don't have, or what's that item that you finally got and you are so excited that you got? Let us know your collecting story. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be putting a collectors roundtable together, if you will, where we're all talk collecting here in the future, and be able to talk more toys, more whatever it is that we're collecting, comics, you name it, whatever it is, we'll be talking about it here. Again, everybody, don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff you got to do on YouTube to let other people know about this podcast if you're liking it. And again, let us know what you guys are thinking about it, and let us know what you want us to talk about here on the show. But I believe that is the end for this one. And
Oh,
on that note, as always, ThunderCats ho.
ThunderCats home.